Get the All right, Mike, get us started. I mean, it was your idea. So intro the show. Again, it's a little bit of a test concept, but let's do it.
Alrighty. Well, one of one. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Muelendez Sports Spectrum with your host, Michael Muela, myself, and my broadcast colleague from Coral Gables at the University of Miami, AJ Mendez. AJ, it's been a minute. What's going on, buddy?
Just having a good summer, summer of soccer, summer of stars. I think it came to fruition. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope millions around the US did too, and obviously the world. So it's been good. What about you? What have you been up to?
On the hunt for jobs, quite literally. It's been stressful. For those of you who don't know, I have recently just graduated from the University of Miami with a degree in broadcast journalism. So God bless, thank the Lord for that. And I'm in the pursuit of a job. However, I did just have a job interview with WQAM last week. So hopefully getting the chance to work with Joe Zagacki and Alex Solana on Canes and Heed and all that stuff, programming. But this is the first episode, the debut, the pilot of the Muelendez Sports Spectrum. We got a
Time out,
lot to.
Mike. Mike, I'm getting word from our producer. There's some whispers up from Yakima, Washington. Tell us a little bit about are those just rumors? Is that a possibility? Mike Muella free agency.
I can confirm the rumors are true. I was offered a position to apply for a reporter position in Yakima, Washington. However, I respectfully had to decline that opportunity simply because it was just too far from home. I'd never been more than 6 hours away from home, at least away from my parents, like full time. And that was when I went to Washington, D.C. in eighth grade. That was the furthest I'd ever been.
Wow.
But I can confirm that those rumors have been put to rest, as have the Michigan rumors as well. I am not going to Michigan. I'm not going to Washington. And as of right now, I'm staying right here in South Florida. But yeah,
All
we can go
righty.
ahead and
There you have
start.
it. That's the free agency that people want to know. I mean, we don't care about all these washed up LeBron and Russell Westbrook and Paul George. Nobody cares about them, and they're all washed up anyway. So the real, the real free agency is Michael Well. That's what I think. That's what the people think. The people have spoken.
Stop tripping, man. I'm no free agent. I'm just a guy trying to make his living in the world, bro.
Fair enough.
Alrighty, but let's go ahead and jump right into it. We got a lot to get to, from Canes football to the Euros as well as Copa America. So, AJ, let's go ahead and start off with Canes football. They're coming off of an improved season from 2 years ago, the first year of the Mario Cristobal era. Of course, Canes went 5-7 and missed out on a bowl game for the first time in almost 10 years. But then last year showed some signs of improvement. They started off 4-0, climbed to the number 17 ranking in the country before a disastrous final minute collapse against Georgia Tech. Canes end up going 7-6, including losing in the bad boy mowers pinstripe bowl to Rutgers. Canes are now 12-13 in Mario Cristobal's tenure, just 6 wins in the ACC in those first 2 years, entering his third year. Is this the make it or break it year for Mario Cristobal and his staff? Of course, we got some big games. Of course, the season opener on August 31st against the University of Florida in Gainesville, followed by the home opener on September 7th against Florida A&M. But here's a big one for you, Canes fans. FSU, October 26th, Hard Rock Stadium. It is the homecoming game. But not only that, the Canes, they're going up to Cali this year because California is now an ACC school. AJ, we got a lot to get to. So let's talk about Mario Cristobal, who's been very active in the transfer portal, obviously losing a couple of guys like Cameron Kitchens and James Williams to the draft, but they also lose their starting quarterback from a year ago, Tyler Van Dyke, who's going to Wisconsin, Henry Parrish Jr., and Brashard Smith. They're also out. So who are some of the big names that Mario has brought into the program to reinsure the Canes' success?
Well, I think the big one, obviously, you lose your starting quarterback, you have to bring one in. And you can't bring in someone available in the portal. Sure, there's going to be, QBs available, off the docket. But the thing is, you got to bring in a star man. You're bringing Jerry Rice Award winner Cam Ward from IUW before at Washington State. Funny enough, I don't know if you heard, he was clashing with Shedeur Sanders during a workout. So he had a workout also with Virginia Tech quarterback Kyron Drones. And I just want you to, I want to read what he said because he had a lot to say to Shedeur. He said,
Hit me.
"Y'all can't handle that heat. That's what it is. It's cool though. That's your team." So I mean, some very strong words from Cam Ward, and I think people are very excited about it. Certainly, I think Miami fans really want to get a good football season. I mean, I happen to be the bad luck for basketball somehow, going from a Final Four to you know not even I don't even want to say crawling into the ACC tournament. I mean, limping, like shot, bleeding, like dragging ourselves across
It's
the
like they
finish
only
line.
have one limb. It's like they're just dragging their arm. It's like Anakin Skywalker after his fight with Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith on Mustafar. He's dragging himself with one hand because he lost his other three limbs.
Yeah, I mean, I think Canes fans are desperate to have a good team. And I mean, you interviewed Ken Masur too for soccer, but I think, again, especially now, NIL era, um, you know, conference realignment, it's all eyes are going to be on QB1. And for Miami, that's Cam Ward. That's the big signing for me. And I think if you don't have the right QB, you don't have your heartbeat of the team, you're not going anywhere. And Miami certainly needs it right now. But I think this is definitely somewhere that you are very knowledgeable. So I want to hear what other additions you think, especially on the defensive side as well, could really make an impact and kind of help this Miami team, you know, be somewhere other than the bad boy mowers pinstripe bowl, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I think a huge piece of Miami's offense from a year ago was the receiving game. We saw guys like Isaiah Horton, we saw guys like Elijah Kelly, Elijah Arroyo as well, Henry Parrish, Mark Fletcher Jr., who I think is poised for a very, very strong sophomore season. But with one dominant running back in your offensive scheme, you got to bring in another, and that's exactly what Coach Mario and the Canes did by bringing in Oregon State running back Damian Martinez. I don't know if you know this, but this guy is speed, agile, he's tough, and he knows exactly what to do when he gets the rock under his arm because more than likely, if you give him the rock, he's going for an average 7, 9 yards a carry. And with the dominant offensive line that Miami has, especially with Francis Malinoa and Samson Okunlola, aka the Pancake Honcho, I think this Miami team is very poised for a successful season. But then also Xavier Restrepo, this guy was Miami's heart and soul for the last 2 seasons, and he announced earlier this season that he will be coming back for his fifth and final season in Coral Gables. And we saw him break out last year because he was playing behind guys like Charleston Rambo and Braxton Berrios. I mean, granted, Berrios was gone after the 2017 season, but I really feel like Xavier Restrepo emerged himself as one of the best receivers in the country, and I think he's only poised to keep going up with a dominant playmaker like Cam Ward, who's going to find him the ball. But then he's also going to have guys spreading the ball around him, so he's not going to have to rely on Xavier Restrepo all the time, like the freshman JoJo Trader from Chaminade Madonna High School, who is also a 4-star prospect. And then let's get into the defense as well. Ruben Bain Jr., aka Hurricane Bain, the 2023 ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. He's another huge guy. They're bringing in Armando Blunt as well, who is a defensive lineman who was committed to Miami, flipped to Florida State, and then flipped back to Miami, which was a huge get for all those guys on the defensive staff. They're also bringing in Tyler Barron from Louisville, Simeon Barrow Jr. from Michigan State. And again, a huge loss for Miami as well is Corey Flagg, who's on his way to Mizzou to play for the Tigers. But this is a really good Miami team that's well-rounded in the offensive and defensive game. I really think that if Miami is going to put themselves in the conversation for that expanded college football playoff, they're looking at having to at least win 8 or 9 games, maybe even 10. And with this schedule that they have, it's a very real possibility. especially going to play California. They're not going to play SMU or Stanford this year, but California, Stanford, and SMU are joining the ACC as part of that conference realignment, like we said. The Big Ten is now the Big 18. The Pac-12 is now the Pac-2 with only Oregon State and Washington State. The Big 12 is getting UCF. I mean, they got them last year, but Oklahoma and Texas are leaving the SEC to go, or they're leaving the Big 12 to go join the SEC with your Auburn, your Alabama, your Florida, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, your Georgia. That is a huge, huge deal because not only does the competition get bigger from there, but you're also exposure to a national audience and a national fan base. You're not just in that small Midwestern or Southwestern demographic. No, you're in a prime spot because the Big Ten, they get a lot of media coverage with your Ohio
Oh
State
yeah.
and your national champion Michigan, which is still pretty unreal to say. And they just lost their head coach too because now Jim Harbaugh's back in the NFL coaching up Herbie in LA. And the whole game of college football is changing. The whole landscape has changed, with the portal. And it's weird almost. I don't think we're ever going to get used to it, especially with conference realignment. But it's the
And
game now.
I want to touch on that because now that you brought up the Big Ten, and I touched a little bit on NIL and everything that has to do with the realignment, which obviously just makes me shake my head because I think if you're going to realign the conferences, why not rename them? I know there's things about naming rights, but it's just really stupid to have conferences that were the Big Ten and the Big 12 because that's how many teams were in the damn conference.
Exactly.
And now there's, I mean, and again, Atlantic Coast Conference with teams from the Pacific Coast.
That's what
It
that's what I was
it,
saying earlier.
it,
Yeah.
it doesn't
If
logically it does
anything,
not compute.
if anything, you change it to the Athletic Coastal Conference, not the Atlantic Coastal Conference, because now you have teams in the West and in the South playing on your coastline and playing in your city.
That's honestly the perfect renaming because I mean it's a very easy change. It's not that difficult of a fix. But now that you mentioned the Big Ten and all the coverage, so Mark Silverman, who's the president and the CEO of Fox Sports, he used to be the president of the Big Ten Network, and I got the chance to talk with him, and he talked about you know this era of football. A lot of people complain about it. Hey, players shouldn't be getting paid. That's for the pros. Like it's ruining the game, this and that. But he made a very good point, which is now, especially look at the schedule. You look at all the games, the expanded. Now it's a real play because I've never really thought that college football playoff was really. I mean, it's just not a postseason tournament. Really, it was always a money grab, and it was always very elitist, and it didn't really give a chance for the thing we love about college athletics, which is you just never know what you're going to get, which is obviously the beauty of March Madness. And
Yeah, yeah. I feel like
that's,
for me, like the college football playoff was always about the blue blood of college football.
of course,
In the early days, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, Florida State, Michigan, Georgia. But over the last couple of years, now we're getting teams like Texas, we're getting Oklahoma, Cincinnati, TCU, and now with the new 12 team playoff, we're going to get to see teams that are often overlooked in college football. And now you're going to get to see why sports is so amazing because anything can happen, especially in
yeah,
college football, which is a national attention getter. You don't even have to be a fan of football to enjoy college football. I mean, for me growing up, like I was never like the biggest football fan until my dad really took me to my first Canes game, and I was like, "This is amazing. I love
yeah.
this sport. I love this university. I love this team. I'm going here one day, and I want to be a part of this." And God willing, I was, and now I
God
can say,
did,
yes, God
God
did,
did,
God did, and I am now part of that Miami Hurricane
yeah.
alumni legacy. So huge shout out, but not to get
To
sidetracked, but
to close
yeah,
out Miami football,
yes,
because I think the point that Silverman made of you're going to have better players, more entertaining games. You're going to have just overall a better slate of games. We've never had this much good football. before, especially in the regular season. Forget the postseason and everything. In the regular season, you typically don't see a lot of these really good matchups that we'll see. And obviously, that has to do with conference realignment, which is obviously a benefit because now you can have a Stanford playing some ACC teams that you would usually not get in the regular season. But last two questions to close out college football. What are your thoughts on the revamped jerseys for the Hurricanes, including that black jersey that we don't know when it's going to get used, but very interesting? And do you think that with all the additions and kind of the outlook the program has right now, is Miami warranted a spot in the top 25? Did the committee get it right for preseason rankings?
Okay, first off, I love the new uniforms. I love the classic look. I love that they're going back to the look of the 80s and the 90s. That was when Miami football was at its best.
Oh, yeah.
Three championships in the 80s and one in the 90s. They won three championships in a span of like 6 or 7 years, 89 or 87, 89, 91. And then, of course, you have the greatest team of all time, the 2001 Miami Hurricanes, which it's not even a question. That is the greatest college football team of all time. Like, yes, you could throw in your 2005 Texas, your 2005 USC, your 1992 Nebraska. No, you don't have a team that has about what 10, 15 future NFL Hall of Famers on it and coaches and people still involved in the game of football, Heisman winners, award winners, some NFL legends. And that 2001 team had six first round draft picks in 2004 alone. What other team do you know of that was so dominant that their average margin of victory was at least 40 points a game? And I saw this stat the other
Nuts.
day on Twitter. Miami football, that 2001 team, if they never scored an offensive touchdown, they still would have went 8-4. And get this, the offense scored 50 touchdowns. So if you take away those
Unheard of.
50 offensive touchdowns from Kellen Winslow, Jeremy Shockey, Clinton Portis, Willis McGahee, Frank Gore, Andre Johnson, Ethnic Sands, Kevin Beard, you take away all of those guys, you're still winning 8 games and you're still going to a bowl game. Are
Yeah.
you freaking kidding me? Like, sorry, I just had to mention that, but I love the uniform. I love the classic look. I don't know how I feel about the Miami Knights edition. I thought they would be going back to their original Miami Knights 2017 look, with the orange and green stripes here on the shoulder pad and the helmet,
Mm-hmm.
and just the orange outline and the big white block numbering. I think it's okay. I'm not the biggest fan of it. Do I think they're tough? Sure. Do I think we're gonna make a statement in those and put on a win? Probably not, because let's face it, we'll probably wear those for our homecoming game against Florida State, and we all know how the last time we wore the Miami Knights unis went. We're not going to talk about that. Let's just
I
say,
was not there. I was not there for that. Probably, thankfully, not there for that.
oh no, you did not want to be there. Trust me, I was there with Cat Five sitting in the front row. We were all just like this, like we could not believe what happened. We were sitting there like, is
Yeah.
this? Did we just see what I think we just saw? Um,
Whoops.
yeah, let's just say
Whoops.
a knee should have been taken. But and then I didn't get a chance to see the top 25 rankings to answer your second question. Where did they have Miami? Because I didn't get a chance to see that.
I believe last I saw, and I'll double check that right now. I believe they were 22nd. Um,
Okay.
and I think honestly that's not. I mean, if you look at the other teams that they were kind of um in between, I mean they were right there. Um, Kansas was 21 and USC was 23. So I mean, I think when you look at a
Yeah.
program like Kansas, that again you talk about the programs in recent history that Oklahoma's really started to establish themselves as a football school.
Mhm.
Texas has as well, even TCU. But you look at the Cincinnati's and Kansas is kind of trending in that direction. I'd say, because I mean, I will always remember Kansas. The first time I realized Kansas had a football team was when Baker Mayfield, was under controversy for kind of
Yeah,
taunting and making some gestures that I won't recreate on
yeah,
camera because nobody
yeah,
nobody asked for them.
yeah. Nobody.
I
Yeah.
think even if people asked me to recreate the gesture, I don't think I would do it. I don't think that's in my best interest. But
No, you
that's
never
kind of
know.
when I had first heard of Kansas football and
Yeah.
coming back from losing by 5, 6 touchdowns to an Oklahoma to now being a top 25 ranked team. I think that's honestly one of the better trajectories, if not one of the best right now in college football. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see how Miami is trending. Again, I haven't. This will be my first fall at Miami, so I've never gotten to experience football season, or U Miami women's soccer, which I'm very excited about. The new era of Ken Masur, which got kicked off by none else than Michael Muella doing the interview, which was a great package, by the way. I told you that. Um,
Yeah. Thank you for deal with
so
that.
it's gonna be a good fall. It's gonna be a good fall. But let's kick it on to the next thing, Mike. What's next on tap?
Well, we were talking about football, but that's the American football. We're going into the European football version. Let's go ahead and start off with the Copa America and European Championships 2024 edition. For those of you who didn't see it, it was Lionel Messi and his Argentina squad, the final match for Argentinian legend Angel Di Maria, and against a very talented Colombian squad led by none other than Captain James Rodriguez. Messi was subbed off with an ankle injury, and it was pretty gruesome for those of you who didn't get to see the swelling. It looked like a balloon was injected into his ankle. Let's just say that.
Whoops.
Yeah, Argentina with a extra time late minute winner to take home a 1-0 victory over the Colombians. James Rodriguez was voted the best player of the tournament, a goal and 6 assists, taking home the
Me-
Golden Boot.
Messi Messi was in here on Lautaro Martinez's back right here
Yeah,
during the
yeah,
final. So
yeah.
that
So
I have to put that out there. I have to.
yeah, definitely, definitely. But let's go ahead and talk about not the match itself, but the atmosphere surrounding the match. There was a lot of chaos at Hard Rock Stadium, and in preparation of the game, Hard Rock Stadium and Miami-Dade County officials put out a statement saying that if you do not have a ticket to tonight's game, please do not come to the stadium. Not come. And I was watching all of the pregame coverage. There was probably about 100,000 people outside of the stadium, like surrounding the stadium, like
Yeah.
gates and stuff like that, at least 2.5, maybe even 3 hours before the game was supposed to start. And kickoff was scheduled for 7 p.m. Fans were barricading through the gates, like they were breaching the gates. Security, extra security was called. People were climbing over the fences. They were trying to climb through the ventilation system, which I thought was absolutely absurd. And people were detained, people were arrested, including the
Yeah.
president of the Colombian Football Federation and his son, which
That
I
just
think,
sums it up right there. Just
yeah,
sums it up.
but I mean, they were breaking through the gates, climbing through the vents. They were damaging the escalators. I don't know if you got a chance to see any of the pictures, but inside some of the escalators were damaged, railings all up and out of place, glass all over the floor. What I would guess, AJ, my question to you would be, what does this say about the the security, I guess, or the protection and health and safety of working staff, but also the players who were supposed to be playing in that game as well, that their match got delayed almost 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many elements and people that are affected by it. Obviously, hundreds of thousands of people, both employees of the stadium, players, their families. I mean, I called it the soccer surrection because it really was like a. I mean, people literally just said, "Oh, they're not letting us in. Like, let's rush the gates," and they just started pushing people, and people are getting like it was literally a stampede, soccer
Yeah,
stampede, whatever you want to call it. But it was overall, a horrible experience. I think honestly, out of all the groups of people, the players are safest because they have the tunnels underneath the stadium. If it would have been, but again, it raises the question of, you know, What if someone that was coming in without a ticket, wearing a backpack, had a bomb in the backpack? Like there's all the things about, what if people are bringing drugs in the stadium or weapons or knives, whatever it may be. And I think it, the cultural aspect, I don't think is touched on enough. And bear with me here, and then let's see if you agree. But I personally went to one of the first Mexico games that was played here in San Diego at Snapdragon Stadium. They had just opened it. They had planted all these little plants, and they were, these young little saplings and bushes. Right when the game ended, Mexico fans, again, when we talk about, oh well, officials told fans not to come in. Hispanic fans are not going to listen
Mm,
to what they are told. If you make them do something, well, a lot of times they'll have no choice. Because maybe people will fight back, but most likely not. But again, Mexico fans were told, hey guys, don't walk through the plants, they're freshly planted, blah blah blah. Any guess for how many people listened to that instruction?
I'm gonna go with a big fat zilch.
Zero. Nobody. So you're just watching all these Mexico fans walk out of the stadium, and they're trampling these plants, and that dirt is flying, going everywhere. And
Yeah.
I was joking with the people that I went to the game with, and I was like, imagine being in charge of landscaping, and they say, "Hey, what the hell happened to all the plants? We just planted them a couple days ago." And the simple answer is there was a Mexico game. And I think the idea of, hey, we're just going to tell all these Colombian fans that, for them it was a really big deal to be in the Copa America final. They hadn't been there since 2001. They hadn't won it since then. It's been decades. And to be back on that stage, they hadn't been in a, important game on the global stage since the World Cup in Brazil. If you tell them that they're not even allowed to tailgate, they're not going to listen. They're going to be there. So again, there has to be a process implemented that you are not getting onto the lot until you show me a ticket, until I scan your ticket. And the fact that that process wasn't there speaks to kind of, again, I don't know why. I don't know who was on this planning committee for Miami-Dade County, and who worked in conjunction with CONMEBOL. But clearly nobody there knows what they're talking about, because the idea that, oh yeah, this will work is beyond me, because I think it's very clear if you live in Miami and the draw that soccer has, even before Messi, a lot of friendlies and everything always packed out. I mean,
Yeah.
dude, look at Miami United. They play in the fourth division, and they'll sell out stadiums in Hialeah for a game against another third, fourth division team. Like, there's
Yeah.
thousands of people with flares and colors. People in Miami, it's the gateway to Latin America for a reason. They're crazy about football, and you're not going to stop them from tailgating if you don't attempt to. So, I mean, sending out a memo on Twitter and sending a press release, hey guys, please don't come and tailgate, isn't going to work. So
Yeah.
I think that, and then just overall understaffing, because apparently nobody on there said, yeah, it's probably going to be pretty crazy because the average ticket price is $4,000, and some people aren't going to want to pay, and they're probably going to swarm, and nobody had any sort of contingency plan, nothing. So I overall think it was, from the organizational point of view, it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to just um who's hosting it, which obviously reflects on the US, and people saying the US isn't ready to host a World Cup. Miami's going to have the third place game. They're going to
And New
host
Jersey's
important
gonna
games in
have
the
the
World Cup.
championship game. New Jersey's gonna host the World Cup final, which I think is beyond ridiculous. But
Yeah.
that actually sets up our next point. 2 points technically, with the United States men's national team being eliminated in the group stage after everybody thought, oh, this is the best the U.S. team has looked since that 2022 World Cup. Being on an international stage.
Yeah.
They team 2-0 against Bolivia, which was a good sign. However, their next game was an embarrassment, a 2-1 loss to Panama, and then the following game, which they basically needed a win to get
Yeah.
in, they lost 1-0 to Uruguay on a very controversial offside call, which I think was should have been an offside, but the referees saw it differently, and then a couple days after that, Greg Berhalter was officially relieved of his duty and the new search for a new manager has
Yeah,
begun. Jurgen Klopp has been in that conversation, but according to
not coming, guys. Hate to break it to you.
according,
I don't
yeah,
think
full reports
Luis
still
de la.
come. Let's
How
see.
about De La Fuente though from Spain? How about that?
I would personally love that, especially
How about that?
what he just did with Lamine Yamal, as that gets us to our next point.
Alrighty, let's get back to it. Muela, showtime.
Alrighty, so where we left off was a European Spanish Championship victory for the lads from España, a 2-1 victory over Jude Bellingham, Bukayo Saka, and England. I mean, what Lamine Yamal, who was 16 years old when the tournament started, he turned 17 the day before the championship final. Dude, breakthrough player of the
Cha,
first
cha, cha,
year.
cha, 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 cha. Lamine Yamal. Cha, cha.
Oh
Had
my
to
God.
do it. Had to do it.
Oh, yeah, that's how you do it. I mean, but what he and España had done, with Morata y Dani Olmo, what that team did, look at what they did. Defeated Croatia and Italy in the group stage. Knockouts. They took out Germany. They took out France, a World Cup champion just about 8 years ago, almost 10 years ago now, on their way to the final, and then taking out an English squad who was in search of their first major
Yeah.
trophy 1966 FIFA World Cup, leaving England still without a European trophy. And this kind of leads into their setup.
Oh, sorry. My
Oh,
allergies are acting up just like Harry Kane's the trophies. Sorry.
wow. Wow,
Sorry.
you went there. Wow.
Sorry.
Well,
Sorry about that.
salud, mi amigo. But this
Oh.
kind of sets it up from our previous question as to how this now sets up the Spanish side for the 2026 World Cup. Lamine Yamal is still only going to be about 20, 19, 20 years old when that tournament rolls around. And he could have
Hmm.
two major championships in a span of 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, what will be interesting is, like we talked about. I mean, I was shocked when news of this broke that Luis de la Fuente is interested in the U.S. job. I mean, to him, I'm like, okay, you know how we've done all these cognitive tests and everything on Joe Biden and Trump and this and that, not to get political, but just we've done all these cognitive tests that we need to do one on Luis de la Fuente. Because if he wants to leave the Euro winning Spanish side, which, like you said, you can say England had a very easy route to the final, and you'd be completely right. I mean, they didn't run into very many difficulties on the way there, besides really Netherlands is really the only powerhouse, I guess, quote unquote, that they faced. But for Luis de la Fuente to go, I just proved that this young Spanish team with new dynamic players, you know, of course you have Nico Williams, you have Lamine Yamal, but even Dani Olmo, you have all these players that are breaking onto the world stage, and now are getting looked at by the biggest clubs in the world. And he wants to take the U.S. job. Why? What is I don't know what's going on in his head. I don't know if privately the U.S. has kind of sent out, "Hey, come here and we'll pay you $30 million a year or something." I don't know. I don't know what the sort of incentive is for top coaching candidates. Obviously, it wasn't enough to entice Jurgen Klopp, who obviously left Liverpool, and then now it's kind of probably like, I don't really want to get back to coaching right now, and certainly not for the U.S.
Yeah,
Um, so I don't know, but I think that honestly, because I think Luis de la Fuente is a big part of the Spanish team's success, because we saw a little bit of a break in between. I mean, I think there was just kind of no continuity from the Euro winning team back in 2012, and then it was kind of like 2014 World Cup rolled around, and they didn't even make it out of the group, and then you get
yeah,
back into Russia, and again, just no real signs of life. Obviously, again, I think Putin made a little call on the phone in that round of 16 game
We're
with
not getting
Spain,
political.
but again, not getting political. Just this has to do.
No politics involved.
We still don't know what the referee saw when he went over to VAR monitor to give a penalty in favor of Russia. But
Yeah,
either way, regardless of those details, I think
yeah. All good.
um, Spain, hadn't had sort of, and I mean, again, and then you roll around to Qatar, and I mean, they did well to get to the semifinals of Euro 2020, which I guess was in 21. But the World Cup rolls around, and again, you know, not very successful, getting knocked out by Morocco. But the thing is, I think there hadn't been that trajectory of here comes Spain back to being the best, and Luis de la Fuente got them there. And now, if he leaves to take the U.S. job, which again, please, like psychological evaluation, like prison style, because something has to be wrong with him to leave Spain job right now. But that would leave Los Españoles in a very, very interesting position leading up to the 2026 World Cup, because the head man you had in charge, who was taking you so much success, all of a sudden abandoned ship. Um, you know, you always need a captain steering that ship. So that's going to be very interesting to see where that positions both the U.S. and Spain. I mean, obviously, I think that would be a fantastic get for the U.S. Because I think it's just a little bit of that footballing mind that I don't think Greg Berhalter has. I just don't think it's ingrained in American coaches. I really don't. I have not seen it to date. I cannot name one American coach where I really look at it and I go, yeah, they got it for an international stage. Haven't seen it. Um, so it's going to be interesting. But your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you on the whole Luis de la Fuente situation. I think what's best for him is to stay with Spain. I think that would be the best decision for him and for that nation as a whole, because not only do you have a World Cup coming up in
Yeah,
2026, you have a finalissima game scheduled as well with
yeah,
Argentina, just won the Copa America, who are
yeah,
riding a ton of momentum, snapping a win streak from a Colombian side who hadn't lost an international game in 22 straight when they lost to Argentina, ironically. So I think I think he needs to hold off at least until after Finalissima. I think after Finalissima, he can make a
yeah,
decision on whether or not to lead his European Championship team into a World Cup where you
yeah,
can now display your talents on a bigger international stage, because now you're not just limited to countries in Europe. You're able to compete against countries from a nation from all over the world. Like you're going to be competing against a U.S., Canada, and Mexico team that are going to be hosting the World Cup as part of the three North American nation trio right there. So
yeah.
you're going to big market over there, but then you're also going to have teams like your Germany, your Russia, your France, your Sweden, that you're
Will
in.
Russia be back? That's a good, because here's the thing. Russia has been very good. Their league, actually, interestingly enough, their domestic league is still doing very well.
Yeah,
And it's just going to be interesting again. You We've said a couple times, let's not get political, but it's hard to, when that's honestly something that will be, I mean, and has been very relevant, obviously, with what's going on in the world. Israel getting kicked out of UEFA. I mean, same with Russia. Will they be back? What's going to happen? I mean, again, with the expanded format, you're just kind of wondering, wait, okay, so who are those extra teams that are going to form part? Because everyone obviously was making fun of the fact, like, oh, great, I get to have World Cup tickets in Toronto, and I'm gonna see Barbados against Djibouti, and woohoo, like yay. World Cup's coming. World Cup's coming to my city, and I'm gonna get these two no name countries that I don't want to watch. Um, Again, sorry to our viewers from Djibouti and Barbados. But but I think that was a concern, but it's going to be very interesting. I mean, Mexico just got rid of their head coach. There's a whole debacle which I'll post in Spanish to TikTok later about the Costa Rican head coach. Pretty overall good performance by Costa Rica in the Copa America. But they want him out now. The press wants him out. Fans want him out. The federation looks like they have their hands tied, so he might be going. But I mean,
Yeah,
that's a whole thing. But I think there's a lot of different kind of coaching. Not even when they're filled, they are somewhat vacant spots because there's kind of like they're not occupying that full position because there's always a little bit of room just for that improvement because teams and federations are looking at, okay, we can't just have a good coach or a great coach, we need the best possible coach we can get. This is going to be the biggest World Cup in history, and we're going to have it right here in our backyard. It's going to be obviously an incredible spectacle. Hopefully we don't have fans rushing the gates again. That would be good. But I think it should be fun. It should really be that spectacle that everybody hopes for it to be. But enough of football because I've even been saying I love the game more than anything in the world. I've even been to two MLS games in between all the Euro and Copa craziness. I'm a little bit footballed out. I can't lie. Slightly footballed out. So let's move on to the next topic. Muela,
yeah.
go for it.
Well, one team's fourth championship to one team's first. What a time here it is to be a fan in South Florida, especially if you are a hockey fanatic like myself. The Florida Panthers, the best team in Florida over the last several years, just took home the 2023-24 Stanley Cup for their first championship in franchise history. And very ironically, it was during the team's 30th year anniversary. Of course, the team was founded by Wayne H. Huizinga, or H. Wayne Huizinga, God rest his soul, in 1993. They defeated the Edmonton Oilers, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, in Game 7, a 2-1 final that was back and forth. What a time it was. Panthers go up 3-0 in the series. Fans everywhere are excited. Like, okay, the Panthers are for real. Like, this series is going to end in a sweep. But then Connor McDavid said, not so fast. I'm still the best player in the world. Leads the Oilers to wins in game 4, 5, and 6 to force a decisive game 7 in Cal.
Nuts.
And after that sixth game in Edmonton, people were starting to question whether or not the Panthers had it in them to win the Stanley Cup. Of course, the previous year they lost in 5 games to the Vegas Golden Knights, who won their first Stanley Cup in about their 6th or 7th season as a franchise. But the Panthers, man, Paul Maurice, Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk, Sergei Bobrovsky, Carter Verhaeghe, that team, they just stuck together and they saw through to the end. Sam Reinhart scoring that decisive winner in the third period. And Panthers were able to get Sam Reinhart to sign an 8-year extension, which now means that core trio of Matthew Tkachuk, Alexander Barkov, and Sam Reinhart are now going to be under contract with the team for the next 6 seasons at least. And of course, they still have a looming decision on Carter Verhaeghe. AJ, I just want to get your thoughts. You got my thoughts. I'm a huge hockey fanatic. Grew up loving it. Grew up watching it. Probably one of the most exciting sports to go see a game live because you never know what you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to get a hat trick. You don't know if you're going to get an overtime win. You don't know if you're going to get a blowout. And there's legal fighting. You can fight in this game. It's legal. They don't stop you until one person gets dragged down to the ice, and you can just sit there clapping, laughing along, like kick his ass.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's so fun. I just want to get your thoughts on not just the Stanley Cup final itself, but the Stanley Cup playoffs as a whole. I want to hear your take.
Well, I'll be honest. I am not a big hockey fan for two reasons. The biggest reason is I have trouble seeing the puck. The glowing puck kind of I guess innovation, because it was an innovation. They need to bring that back because on in person, don't even get me started. But even on TV, like I just see people skating and they're going forth, and it's like watching a tennis match. I'm going side to side looking, and I just see people zooming up and down the ice, and then all of a sudden players come into a circle. I'm like, yeah, someone scored, like whoop. But I kind of miss a lot of the action that way. And also, I don't know, it's kind of a family thing, but we've always prided ourselves on trying to have the best teeth possible. And there's kind of not enough teeth in hockey for me. Um, I know it's very strange, but it's just like I can't deal with just seeing all these guys. I'm like, dude, you're like you, you look like a turtle. I'm like, what are you doing to yourself? I was like, where are your teeth, man? I'm like, I don't know.
Exactly.
Those are personal things again. And so again, I think it's one of those sports where I tune into the Stanley Cup Finals. And at first, I was, kind of following along, and I was like, oh, 3-0. And I kind of stopped watching. I was like, oh my goodness, Panthers are taking it. Something's in the water in South Florida. These hockey teams, I mean, Miami won a club championship, national championship, albeit. Um, and I was like, whoa, something's in the water in South Florida hockey. What's going on? And then, funny enough, I was talking with Ashley, who went to a lot of the games, and I was like, "What the hell is happening?" Like, again, I don't really know hockey, so I was like, I can't tell you what makes a good hockey team or a bad hockey team, but I was like, whatever they're doing isn't working. I can tell you that much. So 3-1, 3-2, and I was like, okay, game six, but now it's over, right? We got to a game seven. I mean, it would have been only the fifth time that a team in the NHL comes back from 3-0. Um, I was kind of like, whoa. So game seven, was super, super entertaining. And again, you, at that point, you get to a game seven, you just don't know what you're going to get. It's like, is Edmonton really going to come back? Because the thing I was really don't like hearing, I mean, McDavid obviously has a lot of fans. I mean, and he's really the new face of the league, the new star. Um, and obviously, people started talking crazy with the GOAT talk. Oh, no, he's better than Wayne Gretzky. I don't care. Like, he won a
Oh,
championship. He came back from 3. I was like, I just didn't want to hear that. So I was like,
yeah.
please. And, now adopting Florida teams. Um, so, but you just didn't know what you were going to get. And that's what's really exciting. But I think, the Panthers, it's very interesting to me in a place like South Florida, even in Texas, having like the Dallas Stars. It's hockey. What? um, so I mean, Edmonton, I get it. Like it's Edmonton. Like that is hockey is the thing in Canada, obviously. Um, but I think it's awesome that there's that culture. Obviously, the Panthers fan base is fantastic. Um, and yeah, I think that atmosphere you talk about, where it's like people can be fighting and blowing each other's teeth out, and there's 20,000 people in an arena screaming their heads off, pounding the glass and going insane. To me, it's a very cool cultural thing. Again, it's one of those things. And when I went to my first hockey game, I was like, I don't know what the heck is happening, but I'm gonna start punching the glass and screaming at people and watching fights. And I mean, it's like a bunch of sports into one. Um, so for me, it's very entertaining to watch. I think overall, um, I can understand why sometimes some of the ratings go down for hockey, especially in the early rounds, because people like me are like, I don't care about the game or I'm not betting on the game. There's not as much interest there. But I mean, what a way to end it. I mean, that's one of the most exciting sports series that we've had, I think, in any sport in recent memory. So that was crazy to watch. I'm glad it went in Florida's way in the end, but very, very cool to be immersed in. Ooh, do we have a 3-0 comeback on our hands? I mean, that would have been cool to see, except obviously if you're a Florida Panthers fan. But we'll leave it. We'll leave it that like that.
Yeah. Yeah, had me stressing for about a good minute because I was so nervous going into game seven. But yeah, I knew my boys were gonna pull through and they did it. And who knows? I'm looking for a repeat, back to back, 2024-25. But again, we'll leave it at that. Let's go ahead and switch it over to some baseball. We just had the MLB All-Star game. MLB's back tonight. Of course, Marlins are taking on the Mets. But let's talk about the All-Star game in specifically. American League defeating the National League 5-3. 10 out of the last 11 games has been won by the American League. They were led by Shohei Ohtani and Jaron Duran, who hit the go-ahead two-run homer. I want to talk about the home run derby, though, because let's face it,
Uh,
the MLB All-Star Weekend is the most competitive All-Star Weekend in all of sports, and that's what makes it fun to watch. Because it's not like these guys are just going out there and playing for craps and giggles. No, they're playing because they want to win and they want to compete.
yeah.
And that's what makes the home run derby so interesting. I would put the home run derby over the 3-point contest and slam dunk contest any day of the week. Because those guys, they're not just swinging the bat nonchalantly. No, they're swinging for power.
In
And
recent times, I would agree with you. I
yes,
think overall, historically, I just look back. I have a lot more memories personally of crazy 3-point contests and slam dunk contests than I do of like a specific home run derby that I remember. But I definitely think, especially since slam dunk contest has done a straight nosedive in recent years.
yes,
Man, the dunks. I forget who it was that did like a regular like tomahawk dunk as his first dunk. And I was like, dude, what? Like I'm sorry, I'm talking as a 5'7" guy that can barely grab the net, but it's like, dude, if you have the ability to jump and dunk in that way, don't do a tomahawk. Seriously, you're
yeah,
just gonna
like,
cock it back, and then like really, like come on.
yeah, like,
But the home run derby, I agree with you. I think those guys, they're literally obviously swinging for the fences on every swing, but you do want to see that effort. It's the same thing with pitchers, which obviously, kind of, you're not seeing a 32-28 game in the All Star game, kind of like you see in the NBA where it's 180 to 156 or whatever. Um, but I think that makes it interesting because you see, obviously, it brings up the question, man, if for an All Star appearance, me throwing gas and then I get injured, oh, that's. I think there's definitely in the back. I'm just putting myself in the mind of a general manager, a manager of a team. Like, okay, I'm letting my guys go to the All Star game, dude. What are you talking about? You have an oblique strain and you're out 3 weeks because you were trying to beat you know Jose Ramirez in a home run derby. Like I would be like this, furious. But it's interesting. Would you say that the MLB's trending in the right direction? Because there's been obviously a lot of talk with the rule changes and the pace of play and kind of trying to switch up the game to make it more appealing overall to the American public, which is obviously that becoming more diverse and people from all over. So how do you kind of bring those people in? You think it's trending in the right direction?
I think it is, because you're getting all these guys from different backgrounds and different nations. Like they also got Muelendez, who just won the Derby. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You got guys like Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, people from all sorts of different backgrounds. And Jose Ramirez as well. Alec Bohm was in the home run derby this year. And you have the younger stars of the game as well. You got you guys like Alois Garcia, Gunnar Henderson, who having a really good season for the Orioles. And I think a lot
Yeah,
of this dates back to the World Baseball Classic because you're also getting audiences in California. You're getting audiences down here in Miami where baseball is a big time thing because you have so many
of
people
course.
of the Hispanic and Latin background. And
Lo caribeño,
exactly like
including the
Seria del
Muelas.
yeah, yeah, like you're like, and of course, Seria del Caribe is coming back to Lone Depot Park
Yeah,
next season or next year, I guess I should say. And that just introduces like a whole new range of audiences. The Marlins, Lone Depot Park, they are allowing vuvuzelas. They're allowing vuvuzelas in the game. So anytime you hear a home run, all you hear is
no, I don't
boo,
have it with me. No.
You
Oh
going
wait,
out here?
I do.
Yes, you're right.
I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it because it'll be very loud and your ears will potentially be ruined
Fair
because
enough.
they're in your headphones. But I mean, we
Fair enough.
got these. I don't have the other one, which is very Mexican, the matraca, which is like the wooden thing you
Oh,
spin that makes a horrible,
yes.
horrible noise.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the one that goes
but
like, yeah, no, but that's
yeah,
the real deal. That's the real deal. But yeah, I definitely think it all goes back to the festivities before, during, and then after the season as well. With like all the
yeah.
parades, like the festivities. Like Texas just won the World Series last year. When was the last time you ever considered Texas like a baseball town? Like that's like your pure blood like football, basketball towns, with the Dallas Cowboys and now the Houston Texans and the Dallas
Yeah.
Mavericks, who just played in the first NBA Finals since 2011 when they beat LeBron, D Wade, and Chris Bosh in the Big Three of the Heat. So like Dallas
Fun
is on
fact,
the
that was the first ever basketball that I watched. It made me fall in love with the game of basketball because I was like, how are JJ Barea, Sean Marion, and some German guy who jumps off of one leg beating LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh? I was like, to little me, I was like, that doesn't make sense, but that's cool because I was like, that means I saw JJ Barea. He was one of my first basketball inspirations. I was like, I saw JJ Barea. I was like, I can play basketball. And then eventually by middle school, I was like, no, I can't play basketball because I can't stay on the court without fouling out or being ejected. So I was like, everything else other than the fact that I'm too small and not strong enough goes out the window. So I was like, but but that's definitely. I mean, again, that is in Texas culture. I mean, so it's interesting to see, but I think it worked out really well to go from World Series champs to hosting the All Star game.
in the All Star game. Yeah, definitely. Well, it's the most fun All Star celebration festivity to watch because the guys
Yeah,
like they want to be there, they want to have fun,
yeah,
and we'll probably get
they
into a
care.
little of that in our next episode. But before we do that, we do have one more topic. Let's talk about the
Oh
and
yeah.
the NBA. Let's go ahead and talk about Caitlin Clark, who
Hmm.
basically did it all in college basketball. Several records shattered and demolished by Caitlin Clark, including becoming the NCAA's all-time career points leader in men or women's sports, all-time three-pointers made. I think she did it all except win a national championship at Iowa, which
Yeah.
fortunate. But she's
Whoops.
making her case for Rookie of the Year conversation, of
Oh
course,
yeah.
with Angel Reese in the Chicago Sky. Caitlin Clark, she just set the single game assist record in the WNBA with 19 the other day. My only question, why was she not included on the U.S. Olympic team? Is it a thing of like, oh, she's still young, like they were trying to get
Mm.
her rookie season out of the way first, or is she just straight up not ready for a
No,
stage like that? I don't
I
know who.
I I I think it's interesting, and there'll be a little video on El Maestro Media about kind of that whole situation debacle, if you will.
Link will be included in the description.
Yes, it will. We'll do it. So, um, I think it doesn't come down to anything situationally about where she is in her career or her age or her ability. I honestly think it has to do with the fact that Team USA wants to go to the Olympics with less distractions. Because I think right now, even in the world of sports, there are a few bigger people than Caitlin Clark. The attention she brings to herself. And the thing is, it doesn't matter who's playing around her. No one will get more attention because she's changed the industry. I mean, the thing that had always been, a really big talking point for people that didn't want to put women's sports at the forefront was this isn't a business. There's no business model to be had here. There's no revenue to be generated. And Caitlin Clark has come in and said, really? Watch this. Um, and so that big economic boom and the growth of the league and TV rights, and now players having charter flights for the first time in the league. I think all of that kind of distracts from the on air. We're on air, not her. Um, on court
They,
things that go around her. So I just think for Team USA, it's about like, okay, she's obviously a star, but she's gonna come in and overpower everyone because all the coverage is gonna be Caitlin Clark at the Olympics, Caitlin Clark this, and not Team USA at the Olympics. Because it's gonna be what is Caitlin Clark doing for Team USA, not what is Team USA doing. So I think that really was the big consideration of, you know what, right now people like to say, strike while it's hot. But I think right now it's too hot for Team USA to kind of want to include Caitlin Clark. So I kind of think it's more how does she gel within the team, and I just think that's what the the Olympic Federation talked about for the U.S. and really just said, right now, no. Right now, no. And I don't think it has to do so much with her specific career and just the fact that she's starting playing pro basketball. It's just more about there's too many distractions going on around her. But interested to hear what you think about why wouldn't they include
yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like with the whole, what would she do for USA, not what would USA do for her. I feel like that's also like a very big thing. But yeah, I also think it's like a thing where it's Caitlin Clark is the most popular athlete in the country right now, maybe in all of sports. And I just think that popularity with being included on the USA women's team for the Olympics, I think the spotlight would have been too big and there would be too much pressure placed on her. And I
that
get
too?
it. I get it. Like she can handle pressure, but there's no bigger pressure than going out on the international stage and representing your country. I mean, if you don't come home with a medal, it's kind of like, okay,
Forget a medal, gold. I mean,
yeah,
I just think as for the U.S. in general, but for USA basketball, men's and women's, you don't come
yeah,
home with gold. And
yeah, I definitely get that, but yeah, I could definitely agree. I think she is the most popular athlete in the WNBA. Her and Angel Reese are leading the conversation for the Rookie of the Year. Do I think Clark will win it? Probably not, because Angel Reese just had 15 or 16 straight double doubles, which is a record, and she's going off. But we'll get more into that next time. Let's quickly round up the NBA. For those of you who don't know, LeBron James' son, Bronny James, aka LeBron James Jr., drafted 55th overall to the Los Angeles Lakers. So in LeBron's 21st season, he's going to be playing with his son. Last time that LeBron did not score a game with at least 20 points, his son was 2 years old. That's over 200 consecutive games or something like that, where he has scored at least 20 straight points. Uh, do I just think that LeBron Jr. deserves to be drafted? Maybe not. I just think that there's too many inconsistencies in his game. Coming off his freshman season at University of Southern California, where he missed the first 8 games due to cardiac arrest, and then comes back, averages less than 5 points, 3 rebounds a game. And the NBA is a different breed. If you're going to be going up
oh
against
yeah,
guys that are 6'10" on average. I mean, look at Embiid, Jokic, Giannis, AD, Bam, who just signed an extension with the Heat, 3 years, 166 million. Kind of leaves everything up in the air with the whole Jimmy Butler contract and what they're doing there. But AJ, I want to get your thoughts. We've seen some pretty crazy moves in free agency. We saw Klay Thompson leave Golden State. We saw Paul George leave OKC. We saw DeMar DeRozan leave Chicago. I want to ask you, what has been the biggest surprise to you in NBA free agency this offseason?
yeah. I mean, I think there have been some big moves. Um, it was interesting to me to see that Klay Thompson picked the Mavs over the Lakers. That to me was very interesting. Um, because just having the opportunity to go there and saying no. I mean, Paul George, not surprising. He wanted a payday. I don't think he deserves it. As a Clippers fan, of course, I've been through a lot. a lot of injuries, a lot of inconsistency, and a lot of $100 million plus extensions being handed out. And I know that his thing was, oh, I want to be paid like Kawhi, which in his defense is fair because I think overall they've been on the court for the same amount of time, which is, you know, always been not at the right time. When we've needed the most, they haven't been available. They've been injured. So I think Paul George walking, he'll go to the Sixers. They won't win anything. Will they make it to a finals? Maybe, but they'll probably end up looking like that.
Yeah.
So what's interesting to me is you look at Chris Paul, going to the Spurs. You look at Klay Thompson. You look at DeMar DeRozan, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and obviously they're all big names. But for me, what do they all have in common? For me, they're all washed. Seriously, I love Chris Paul. I mean, I have his signed jersey hanging up for crying out loud. But he's very old, and it's the last basketball he's going to get. So he's not the same impact player that when he was teamed up with James Harden trying to take down Golden State. DeMar DeRozan is not that guy anymore when, he's playing on the Raptors. He's just not that DeMar DeRozan anymore. He's not. And Klay Thompson is not the same Splash Bros Klay. And Paul George is no longer in his, Pacers prime or even OKC or even, playoff peak. He's not. So all of those players, I think, again, big moves, big names, obviously, but I don't think they're going to have the impact that a lot of people expect them to have. So I just think all of those moves to the fans in Sacramento and San Antonio, now in Denver getting excited, I think, Russell Westbrook out of all of those will be the one that has the most impact. But I would just take that with, I wouldn't say a mountain of salt, but a good handful. Because you just can't expect too much out of guys that they're in the tail end of their career. You just can't expect them to come in and be a new superstar or complement your superstar in Wemby or in Luca. It's just not going to pan out that way in my eyes. But we'll close with that. Take us out, Mike.
Alrighty. For those of you who missed it, we talked about Canes football, key games, key additions, key departures. Talked about the chaos surrounding Copa America, recap of Spain's victory at the European Championships, the new search for the USA and what they plan to do with their manager. Panthers taking home their first cup in franchise history, the All-Star game, and Caitlin Clark, as well as some of the big moves in NBA free agency. We could have gone off on a tangent, but we are going to leave it right there. Plenty more to talk about in episode 2, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But to close it out, AJ, my brother, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can they find you on Instagram, social media? What's up?
So on Instagram, and I forget yours. It's like Michael UMTV _ sports, something like that. Something like that.
Michael _ UMTV Sports. I'm gonna have to change
dang.
longer part of UMTV, so it's gonna have to be Michael Muela _ sports or something like that.
But at Andres ANDRESJM3 and at El Maestro Media. Remember, we're going to Paris. And so I think the Muelendez Sports Spectrum Muelendez Monthly, I think will be a very interesting concept that we'll have. So before the recording ends, so long.
Well, thank you very much, AJ. You can go ahead and find me as well on Instagram at Michael _ UMTV Sports. That's MICHAEL. A before E. I can't tell you how many people put E before L or E before A or whatever. And at Muela Media. So that's going to do it for us here on the Muelendez Sports Spectrum. We'll see you next month for episode 2.